I wasn't meant to be on that level. The job was simple: routine maintenance, cooling systems, sub-levels I'd worked on dozens of times before. The pad shouldn't have worked, but it did. No alarms, no red lights, just a corridor I didn't recognise. Longer than it should have been, and quieter. Too quiet. The air felt different down there. Not cold, not warm, just still. I remember thinking the building had been designed wrong, that the space wasn't meant for people to linger. Halfway down the corridor, I noticed something else. The walls changed. The concrete gave way to something smoother, darker, almost reflective, and at the end, a door. There was no label, no handle, just a narrow glass panel, reinforced and thick. I shouldn't have stopped, but I did. At first, I thought the room beyond it was empty, then something moved, slowly and deliberately. It stood upright, roughly human in shape, but the proportions were wrong. The shoulders sat too far back, the neck too still, and the head tilted, not in curiosity, but in recognition. The eyes opened, not wide, not suddenly, they just opened. And that's when I understood something without knowing how. It knew I was there. The skin didn't look like skin. It caught the light differently. It didn't absorb it. I didn't scream, and I didn't move, but I remember thinking, this isn't fear. This is a mistake. A voice came from behind me, practiced.
Sir, you need to step away from the door.
I didn't ask questions, and I didn't look back. I just stepped away. They walked me out through a different route. No corridor and no badge. By the time I reached the surface, my access had already been revoked. 2 days later, my contract was terminated. No explanation and no exit interview. Just a reminder of the NDA I'd signed years ago. Sometimes I still think about the way it looked at me. Not angry and not surprised. As if I was late. As if it wouldn't be the last. After they let me go, I tried to forget. That was the advice everyone gave.
Move on, find another contract.
Don't dwell. But forgetting implies choice, and this didn't feel optional. I stopped sleeping properly, started waking up at the same time every night, 14 minutes past 3, every night. I began sketching it, not because I wanted to, but because my hands did. I sketched the shape, the posture, the eyes, always the eyes. At first, I told myself I was looking for closure. Then I realised I was looking for confirmation. I searched for anything that resembled what I'd seen. Medical journals, psychology papers, mythology, but nothing fit. Until I stopped searching for answers and started searching for patterns. And that's when the old text started to appear. Most of them weren't translated. Some were fragments, margins burned and pages missing, but the descriptions were consistent. Beings that lived beneath, not above. Observers, custodians, wardens, always described by the same details. No claws, no fangs. Eyes that watched without blinking, skin that reflected torchlight like polished stone, and a warning. Never let them know you see them. One account stood out because it wasn't a myth, it was a confession written by a man who believed no one would ever read it.
I write this in the hope that time will hide it. If these words are found, then I have failed. The brothers believe I copy scripture, that I illuminate holy truths. They do not know what the tunnels beneath this place contain. We were told they were old storage chambers, remnants of earlier builders. That is a lie. They do not sleep beneath us. They watch. I saw only one once, by candlelight. It did not flee. It did not strike, it simply turned its head and regarded me, as one might regard an animal that has learned to open a door. I was ordered never to return below, and yet, every night since, I feel them listening. If you read this, know this truth. They are not demons, and they are not gods. They are much, much older, and they remember us.
Everything you just watched isn't meant to convince you. It isn't proof, and it isn't a claim. It's a pattern. Two people, different centuries, different lives. Yet they describe something that feels familiar. Not in detail, but in purpose. Across history, the names change. Sometimes they're called watchers, sometimes custodians, sometimes something else entirely. But the role stays the same. They don't rule openly, they don't announce themselves, they observe. They remain out of sight. That's the part worth paying attention to, because stories don't need to be true to matter. They need to endure. This is episode 3 of the Alien Species series. If this is your first time here, I'd strongly suggest starting with episode 1 and 2. That's the Greys and the Nordics. They lay the groundwork for everything you've just seen. You'll find them linked above. You see, these ideas surface again and again in ancient writing, in religious margins, in modern conspiracy culture. Different eras and different anxieties. The same question underneath. Who's really in control? When people trust their systems, when power feels visible, these stories tend to fade. But when decision making feels distant, when rules seem to come from nowhere, they return. Reptilian narratives aren't really about creatures, they're about hidden structures. The sense that outcomes are being shaped somewhere else by forces you don't see through processes you don't understand. And when that gap opens, the imagination steps in. Not with monsters, but with overseers. That's why these beings are rarely described as violent. They don't chase, they don't need to, they watch. And when they're noticed, they don't react, they simply acknowledge. Like something realizing it's been seen by someone who wasn't supposed to notice. So whether reptilians exist or not, the idea that someone else is guiding outcomes from the shadows, that power operates quietly without explanation. It says more about us than it does about them. It tells us people feel observed but not protected, aware of the systems but disconnected from them, certain that influence exists but unsure where it lives. And maybe that's why these stories don't disappear. Not because they're true, but because they feel true. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking the video, subscribing and ringing the bell. It genuinely helps DarkLight to grow and lets me keep making deeper content like this. So remember, until next time, question everything, keep safe and keep one eye open. Toodles.